Well, we'll get to talk about Mortaba's emergence and what this means, as well as reactions that it's already getting across the world. For instance, we know that President Donald Trump of the U.S. has described this as a big mistake. But what is the implication of this for that lingering war? We'll get to talk about that in just a moment. Before we get into the discussion, let's bring you updates on the war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. As it stands, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Israel are all reporting fresh Iranian missile attacks towards their countries. The Israeli Defense Forces say efforts are being made to intercept them, and a warning has been sent to residents in affected areas. The United Arab Emirates Ministry of Defense says its air defenses are currently responding to incoming missile and drone threats from Iran. It's asking residents nearby to adhere to safety and security instructions. Qatar's Ministry of Defense says armed forces have intercepted a missile attack targeting the country. Meanwhile, oil prices have fluctuated substantially since the beginning of the war, reaching a peak of almost $120 a barrel at the opening of the week. The price currently sits at around $90 per barrel. And on the flip side, Iranians say attacks over Tehran and Karaj worsened overnight. But this is as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country's war with Iran is breaking their bones and it's targeted at freeing the Iranian people of tyranny. U.S. President Donald Trump said his nation's war with Iran will end very soon. He told journalists yesterday that he had a very good phone conversation with the Russian president, and he believes it could be helpful. His statement is being hinged on President Putin's support to bring down oil prices. But this is because he added that some oil sanctions could be lifted, but did not specify countries on the list. Iran, on its part, has reportedly said it will not allow 1 liter of oil to be exported from the Middle East region if U.S.-Israeli attacks continue. And as it stands also, the Israeli Defense Forces has issued a new evacuation order for residents of the coastal cities of Tyre and Sidon in Lebanon ahead of airstrikes. The alert follows an earlier evacuation order for people in southern Lebanon, urging residents to move north of the Litani River ahead of strikes. Now, let's take a look at Iran's entry into a new political chapter following the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei as the country's supreme leader, the third now. The decision follows the death of longtime leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who ruled the country for more than 3 decades. We have more details in this report.
Iran's Assembly of Experts has officially named Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as the country's 3rd supreme leader since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The 56-year-old cleric takes power at a time of heightened tension in the Middle East, with Iran facing military pressure abroad and political uncertainty at home. The leadership transition follows the death of Ali Khamenei, who led Iran since 1989 and was widely regarded as the most powerful figure in the country's political and religious system. His son's appointment marks a historic moment in Iran's political history, representing the first-time leadership of the Islamic Republic has effectively passed from father to son. For years, Mojtaba Khamenei has maintained a relatively low public profile, but analysts say he wielded significant influence behind the scenes and built strong ties with Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guard. Supporters say his leadership represents continuity for Iran's political system, while critics warn that the succession could deepen tension both inside the country and across the region. Meanwhile, a French researcher says the new leader will be a target for the US and Israel, and they won't hesitate to try to hit him.
It is a very clear message sent to the United States, which is to say, we are here and we will continue in the same vein. And it is not because Trump said it was up to him to designate the Supreme Guide that the Assembly of Experts and the Revolutionary Guards obviously accept the solution. What is clear is that the reaction of Israel and the United States is going to be to try to reach it as they have reached their father. This is really the clearest message in reaction to this nomination, which does not go in the direction of what the Americans and Israelis want. It is to say that it is a target, obviously, and that they will not hesitate to try to reach it.
U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested U.S. operations against Iran could end soon, as the U.S. is ahead of schedule, though he has previously said the war could last several weeks. As Iran navigates an uncertain regional environment, the new supreme leader now faces the challenge of consolidating power, maintaining internal security, and shaping the country's future direction on the global stage.
For an analysis of the war and its impact, global affairs analyst Kunle Falowo joins me from Indianapolis in the United States of America. Mr. Falowo, somehow I'm tempted to ask you what it feels and looks like in the U.S., on the streets where you are there, how people are reacting to this war that is between Israel and the U.S. on one hand and Iran on the other. Let's take it from there.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Looking at the streets and what a lot of Americans are saying, first of all, we should remember that Mr. President initially had promised the American citizens or Americans in general that he was the man for peace, and he wasn't interested in engaging in any kind of war. But as it is, we know what the current situation is. And on the streets, a lot of people are kind of confused. Some really do not know what's going on. Some are just getting a hang of things. And one of the ways that people are starting to feel the impact of this war or incursion, depending on what who you're listening to, or the interpretation of it, the prices of gas right now is going a little higher, so it's going to be pinching a lot of people in their pockets, and that's why people will start to get concerned and start to get worried, especially when prices of gas, which everybody consumes, becomes a little higher.
Indeed, the world is feeling that already. But let's even at the moment talk about leadership in Iran. The late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, has been named as supreme leader. But you know what? President Trump is having none of it. He's not mincing words, and he's described it as a big mistake. What is the implication of this for the lingering war?
Great implications, I would say. It just tells you that the bottom line, the most important parts of what the president and his current administrations are rooting for is to have a hand in the picking of the next leader of Iran. As it is, that's not happening, and they're not having it, which is unfortunate because I mean Iran is an independent country. They have a right to run their own affairs as they deem fit. They do have. Let's not take out the fact that they do have some human rights issues and some leadership crisis, and some people are internally are advocating for change of leadership and change of form of government. Those are internal crises. But as it is, the United States government is interested in being a part of who decides who becomes the ultimate leader of Iran. But as it is, it's not happening that way, and it's just sad to see that we will continue to see all of this happen in real time. This is very bad for the world, as it affects everyone, as it is now.
Many people are curious as to what Mojtaba Khamenei's strategy would be in this war. He has been described as a hardliner. He has maintained a relatively low public profile, but he appears to wield significant influence behind the scenes, especially with Iran's powerful revolutionary guard, and he's a conservative, clerical establishment. What do you see him bring to this war? Negotiations for an end, negotiations for peace, or would it rather be fire for fire?
The son of Ayatollah, the deceased supreme leader of Iran, and now that we're seeing the son take over the helms of affairs, it just seems like a continuation of Ayatollah as Ayatollah's leadership, meaning that he's a hardliner, and he's in his about 56 years old. It's been in the military since he was about 17, and that tells you that he's a part and parcel of those governments. He's been around for a long time. He's a hardliner, and honestly, we really don't know what the trajectory of this war is going to be like. But for example, not about 10, 20 minutes ago, we saw a recent big figure in the current administration saying that they've been reached out to by China and Russia, and they're asking for de-escalation, and they're providing that. The only reason that they would even consider any form of abating or going back and not attacking any country in the Arab part is to have Iran to have Israel and the United States stop the aggression first of all, and then they could continue negotiation if possible. But then again, back to your question, this man is a hardliner. He's not going to go down very easily, and unless there's some individuals that would have some form of talking to make sure that there seem to be some form of negotiation. That's not happening yet. So it seems like it's going to be fire for fire until further notice.
And that is dangerous for the world, because already we're seeing all prices fluctuate. And then, as it is even, President Trump is bringing the Russian President Vladimir Putin into the mix. He's asking him for support in order to bring down oil prices. And then we know that Iran has threatened that not 1 liter of oil will be exported from the Middle East if U.S.-Israeli attacks continue. How do you see this pan out, and what global body or figure, can step in to de-escalate tensions? Because we haven't heard much from the United Nations, which would ordinarily be playing this role.
The United Nations has been momentarily crippled. I would say there seems to be a lot of internal crisis in there since the United States kind of systematically withdrew from financing the United Nations, and that is a major concern. That aside, when you look at Russia and Iran and China and Russia, for example, they are a big supporter of the Iranian government because they get their oils from there. The petroleum, oil generally, they do a lot of business with Iran. Having said that, most importantly, the Strait of Hormuz is one of those areas where 20% of global oil is being carried along, and that is very instrumental to world energy supply. Now, if that is going to be attacked by the Iranian government as it is, it's going to be a huge problem. Now, the fluctuation is just a start. It's going to get a lot more worse than that if we see a continuation of disruption in that particular area. Having said that, it's also very important to acknowledge that at some point Iran would continue to defend themselves. As that's what they're saying, but then again, how long would this go on for? Because innocent people will continue to die, and a lot of other countries will be affected. It's also very important that now that other countries are starting to get involved in it because of how connected the world is. For example, France, for example, have promised to use their naval warships or their naval support to accompany vessels going through the Strait of Hormuz has a form of security, and that's a trending concern. If all of the other countries who's doing business in that area are using naval ship to escort their shipping lines or vessels, that will be a continuation of escalation because there'll be bombings and there'll be attacks, and this is going to be very problematic unless everybody come together and find other ways of negotiating and going back to the drawing board, and that's the only way that we can find a lasting solution to this
You know,
crazy war.
yeah, President Trump appears optimistic that this war will not last long, that it will end soon, and that he is trying to free Iranians from tyranny. But when you talk about something not being long, then there's a lot of question as to how long is not too long, or how short would mean not too long, and what modalities are in place to ensure that it doesn't, it really isn't long, and whether it's just for one day, whether it's just for 24 or 48 hours, we know that lives are being lost. Already, the U.S. has announced that about 8 soldiers have died, as a result of this conflict. And there are already thousands of people on the side of the Iranians. I'm just curious what you think, peace would look like, because this is practically breaking down the walls, the systems in place in Iran. And President Trump is threatening to even rain fire and fury such that Iran would not, it would be impossible to rebuild it after this session. It's difficult for me to wrap my head around it. And I'm just curious as to what you think about it.
It's difficult for everyone or anyone who's interested in world peace to wrap their minds around what's currently going on. Let's not forget that this is a long time coming. We thought that the president administration will continue to follow the path of peace by continuing to negotiate. Let's not forget that the Iran nuclear deal that came into force in 2015 during the Obama administration was ideally to continue on with the negotiation. And Mr. President, did find some lapses in that negotiation. What you would have thought would happen was to continue on with that negotiation and to make changes in that draft. But unfortunately, this is what we've come up with as far as the next line of action. And it seems that even the world order right now it's in a whole chaos and mess. Now with the messaging, particularly with global oil prices, we would notice that first of all, we're going into the midterms election pretty soon. Hopefully before the end of this year. And the messaging is very important at this point because the president is saying the war is going to come to an end, and that will send a rippling effect in the stock market and petroleum, the global market, for example. There seems to be some form of ease on the line of the investors when they heard that the president has mentioned that the war wasn't going to go for too long or wasn't going to be extended for too long. But then again, there seems to be a lot of mixed messaging because there are no modalities for that to happen, and sometimes there's no consistency in what the administration is putting forward. So it's a changing and revolving and in developing story that we'll all have to follow and see how what comes of it.
Yeah, and we are patiently watching to see how this is finally resolved. Global Affairs Analyst Kunle Falowo, many thanks for your time on World Now.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.